Welcome to Prophecy World Watch with Steven Leblanc. I'm Willie Bremer, and today, Mr. Leblanc, we're talking about the Middle East. On your radio shows, you've been talking about a major repositioning going on in the Middle East. Can you go into depth about this?
Yes, thank you very much, Willie. There definitely is a major repositioning among the nations, particularly in the Middle East, and it has to do with the new presidency. And of course, we know that President Biden has been our president now for quite a few months. So the response to that in the international community, especially as we're taking a look at the Middle East today, is there was a big difference because President Trump was very much in an adversarial position toward Iran. When he left office, President Biden switched the tactic. President Biden's tactic concerning Iran is more, let's talk, let's see if we can work out our differences. So he tries to be firm, but yet willing to talk and even willing to pull back on some of the sanctions that had so hurt Iran. You know, Iran right now, Willie, is going through a major drought. And there's a lot of unrest in various Iranian cities because high unemployment, difficult, more and more difficult to get a variety of foods that Iranians like. It's tough to get water. Some cities are experiencing major problems in terms of electricity. So the Iranian population as a whole is not happy. But remember, you're dealing with a dictatorship in Iran, and the Ayatollah has a firm grip over the nation. But what President Biden is doing is he is saying, look, let's talk. We want to be able to talk regarding the potential for Iran to have nuclear weapons, which America does not want to see. No one wants to see Iran with nuclear weapons. But just the fact that President Biden wants to talk about it with the Iranian leadership is sending a signal to Iran that they can start to focus clandestinely on their nuclear program. Remember, the Iranians want to be able to get a nuclear weapon. Essentially, what you're seeing, President Trump was hard line against Iran. President Biden, though he speaks tough, definitely has a softer stance. He's hoping that we can talk to the Iranian leadership. So this has created a different dynamic in the Middle East. When President Trump was president, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Israel, essentially the leadership structure in all those nations, they liked President Trump because they felt everything was crystal clear. And what they liked most about President Trump was that he was very much against Iran. You have to understand, Iran is predominantly Shia. The rest of those countries in the Middle East are mostly Sunni. So Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and of course Israel, I'm just giving the major examples here, they view Iran as a great threat. So they don't want the American president being talkative or warming up in any way, shape, or form to the Iranian leadership. Not that we would say that the president is warming up to Iran, but definitely he doesn't have that clear, in-your-face approach that President Trump had. So the Israelis now, since President Trump is no longer in office, are trying to figure out, well, what do we do? How do we handle the growing threat of Iran? Same with Saudi Arabia, same with the United Arab Emirates. So these are some of the details we're having to work through regarding the Middle East right now. President Putin of Russia is actually showing himself stronger in Syria right now. And he wasn't able to do that with President Trump because he, to some extent, feared President Trump. He didn't like President Trump. Putin didn't like President Trump, but he knew that he could only go so far in terms of his international adventures. I'm talking about President Putin. But now Putin sees that there is a weakened presidency here in the United States. And again, I'm not trying to attack our president here, but Putin sees that it's not going to be a hard line approach by the Americans. The Americans have just withdrawn out of Afghanistan. So Putin's pushing. He's pushing his power, and he's gaining more momentum as a genuine power player in the Middle East. Israel, they have a new prime minister who is not as tough on Iran as Bibi Netanyahu was. We just don't know with Israeli politics. It's so fragmented. Naftali Bennett, the new prime minister, claims to be very, very anti-Iran, claims to be a tough individual, but this is yet to be seen. He has formed a coalition government with some very centrist type Israeli politicians. So again, the message is Israel is not going to be as strong when facing Iran as it was under the Trump administration when Benjamin Netanyahu was prime minister. So you can see the dynamic here. Just to simplify it, President Biden has more of a let's talk approach to the Middle East, where President Trump says, these are the rules, we'll talk, but you have to acknowledge our rules. So that gives you a little bit of insight, Willie.
Mr. LeBlanc, in the book of Daniel, it talks about the king of the north and the king of the south. How does that fit into what you're talking about today?
Well, this is significant, and that's a prophecy in the book of Daniel, chapter 11, verses 40 through 44, where it talks about the king of the north will be provoked or attacked or pushed by the king of the south. Now, we believe the king of the south, based on history and patterns of history and prophecy, the king of the south is going to be an Islamic leader. And this Islamic leader is going to provoke this end-time European dictator to move into the Middle East and to sort out the Middle East. So getting back to what I was talking about, that there's a major repositioning in the Middle East today, what is important to understand is so many of these Middle Eastern nations like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, even the State of Israel, because they see President Biden as being a president who would rather talk with their enemies, these leaders from these various countries, Egypt included, Sisi and Egypt included, will say, hey, look, we need to rely on ourselves. We need to arm ourselves because Iran is going to become more powerful. We don't have a President Trump there to draw the red line and to stick to the red line because they believe that President Biden, not that he's a pushover, but that he's not going to draw a definite red line and then stick to the red line. So it means you're going to see a rearming in the Middle East, no doubt in Egypt, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, and even little Bahrain. So it's really interesting to see the scrambling going on. These Middle East countries are repositioning themselves. Getting back to the prophecy, though, Willie, in Daniel chapter 11 and verse 40 through 45, it talks about the king of the north, the king of the south. In the future, this could be 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10, 11 years away. There's going to be a major military conflict between a European power dictatorship and a Mahdi, a type of savior, a type of Islamic savior, who they're going to clash. And then this European dictator moves into the Middle East, takes control of Jerusalem, stops twice daily sacrifices in the city of Jerusalem. Those sacrifices haven't happened yet, but they will begin at some point. This European dictator will put a stop to all of that, and he will take control of much of the Middle East. Now, we go into this, Willie, and we do have a free write-up, a prophecy pamphlet on the king of the south. That's the king of the south. Okay, that's the king of the south. We'll send it to you free of charge. You can reach us at that toll-free number, 1-877-449-6753. It's a toll-free call. The number is 1-877-449-6753. 449-6753, and we talk about the King of the South. We go into much greater detail. This Mahdi, this Islamic savior type figure, and we discuss that. So, to summarize what we've talked about today, is that all of the Middle East realizes they cannot depend as much on America to protect them, our allies in the Middle East. Iran is going to take advantage of our quote unquote waffling or weakness. Russia will take advantage of our weakness in the Middle East. And you're going to see Vladimir Putin, he already, as of last week, started to exercise greater control in the country of Syria to the north. In a future podcast, we're going to talk about Lebanon in prophecy. Lebanon's just falling apart, Willie, and this is very dangerous. It's just coming apart, massive unemployment. Most of the time, Beirut, Lebanon, the capital city, is without electricity. It's bad news. So much taking place in the Middle East, but I wanted to just focus on the difference between the Trump presidency and President Biden. We look forward to seeing everyone next time.